Well, welcome all. My name is Seth Green, and I'm the Dean at the Graham School, and we are the home of the Master of Liberal Arts, and we are thrilled to welcome you to this information session, which we conduct each month to give you an opportunity to glimpse into this extraordinary degree program. If possible, we encourage you to share your video because we'd love to be in interaction. And the reason we keep these monthly and intimate is so that we can truly hear your thoughts and answer your questions. I'll just virtually welcome you to our very special Hyde Park location where I sit right now and where it is nearly as beautiful as it looks, although the leaves are off the trees for the most part at this time of year. And I share this because even though this is an online degree, we do invite you to campus several times a year. And the big ideas that you'll be learning about absolutely eminent from this very special place. Over the course of the next hour, we have a few agenda items. We're going to welcome you. We are going to share a snapshot of the MLA. We're going to go deep into the learning journey, and then we're going to talk about the timeline ahead and answer your questions. So on the welcome note, I've shared who I am, but I'm going to invite the others who are shown here to share who they are. And if we can, Tim, let's start with you as our MLA director.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Murphy. I serve as the director of the Master of Liberal Arts program here at UChicago. I've been with the Graham School for a little over 8 years now, working with the MLA program, and think it's just a real gem of a program for some reasons I'm sure we'll cover in the session. So it's good to be with you. And I think Beth is next up on the list.
Oh, Beth, you're on mute, but we're in suspense. Let's see. Yep, no problem. And Carrie, why don't we come to you for a quick introduction and we'll give Beth a little time.
Okay, I'm ready whenever you are.
Perfect, go for it, Beth.
Sorry, of course, my phone rang right as I was time for me to talk. Anyway, I am Beth Coronelli, and I am a student in the program. I started in September of 2022, and I've worked across industries. I came into the program with journalism undergrad and MBA, and am nearing the completion of the program. So I'm here as representing the students, but it's been from across industries and real estate, investor relations, finance. So it's been going from an MBA to MLA has been a great journey, which I'll talk a little bit about today.
Wonderful. And Carrie, who are you?
Everyone, I'm Carrie Dempsey. I'm Director of Recruitment for the MLA program. I've been with the Graham School for just a little bit over a year right now. I was really excited to join this team because I think that the liberal arts nurture a broader way of thinking that's so critical in our personal and professional lives. And I love that my team and I have the opportunity every day to connect more learners with this program.
Well, we're going to come back to them throughout the conversation. So I'm going to jump in now to the snapshot of the degree. And what we're aiming to do at the highest level is to create an interdisciplinary environment to help you grow as a leader, as a problem solver, and as a communicator through advanced studies in the liberal arts. There's a core belief that we have behind this program, which is that at a time where artificial intelligence and technology allows you to do almost anything, the bigger question is why and whether. And that what we do in this program through both timeless texts and through very timely conversations about the big issues of today is allow you to think across time and space about how to look at ethics, leadership, and now technology due to our new concentration, and to be able to use that insight to both propel you personally in your life journeys as well as professionally in your career journeys. The rationale, as I mentioned, is that as our world becomes more complex, the MLA gives you these core tools that really are foundational. How to think critically and deeply, how to rigorously investigate an idea, and how to ask really deep ethical questions about whether something can or should. What we believe is the value of this we call cognitive boot camp over a period of years is that you sharpen your synthetic thinking, meaning your ability to take lots of information and distill it into a few core ideas. There was a woman in the program a few years ago who was in finance and was describing how the class she took on cosmology, where she had to look across billions of years and then write a short paper at the end summarizing how to understand the major themes, led her back in her work, which was in finance, to be able to reduce all of these different assets into some core themes that she was able to distill for a way of thinking about why they matter. We also have specialties that allow you to go deep into a specific area. Right now, we have ethics and leadership, literary studies, and thanks to a new concentration added this year, tech and society, where we are looking at the intersection of the major advancements that are happening and the societal and ethical questions that they are raising. And finally, one of the greatest benefits, and you'll maybe even hear that in the Q&A section today, is the accomplished peers, that this is a group of people from across the world who are highly accomplished and interested in being in an intellectual community where they are challenged by one another. We are a place where every single student has a distinct story, but there are some common elements across them. So what you see here in the bottom left is that nearly 6 in 10 of our students already hold one or more graduate degrees. And so this is a place where you are going to that next order of thinking through advanced study in the liberal arts. It's very common that many individuals who take the MLA in their 20s or early 30s got an MBA or a JD or an MD. And they then enter their careers and they've been very successful, but they've reached a point where in leadership, they're asking these fundamental questions where instead of just studying a technical or professional goal, they're really trying to think more creatively. And that's where this degree can be so transformative. About 3 in 10 reside currently in executive leadership roles, and most of the people are coming with decades of experience. What we find is in common across all of these students is that they are relentlessly curious. They really want to ask big questions because they want to better understand the world. They are rigorous. They are going to test ideas, and that is what makes the classroom and its co-construction of knowledge so exciting. They're innovative. They're people that want to think unconventionally, and they're highly collaborative. We have an incredibly respectful community where open exchange takes place across divergent viewpoints. But let me not be the one to tell you about this program. We have two people that are far better experts, Tim Murphy and Beth Cornelli. And so I'm going to start, Beth, with you. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose to pursue the MLA and how you see it complementing your existing MLA? MBA.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My acronyms are up.
All those terms. Yeah, absolutely. No, as you mentioned, I have an MBA, and just as the MBA, which I completed some time ago, transformed my thinking in business. This program has broadened my, and I think you explained it very well. As it's a cognitive boot camp, curiosity, bringing people together. And the reason I was at a crossroads when I had been looking at it for quite some time. I think since at least 2018. And I just like I said, started in 22. And it was a time when I was looking to expand my thinking. And that is one of the things it really has done. And I remember my first class, I finished a project for work on the 6th of September, and I started class on the 7th, and jumping right into a class with people that are so smart. And I'd been connected to the university some time ago, just in taking, speakers, and fell in love with the university and the thinking and the way people approach learning. And when I, stepped into my first class, I was nervous, and I hadn't been in class for a long time, but it really, even from that first minute, pushed me to think, broaden my thinking, and take ideas that are broad and bring them down to a distilled thinking. And that's what it's done. And that's where my thought was, I want to learn and have that same experience of when I had my MBA, and broaden my thinking to a new language and a new way to think. And that's exactly what this has done.
And Tim, can we come to you? Beth gives one example of why someone pursues the MLA You obviously are working with over 100 students that are in the program today. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen different pathways into MLA?
Absolutely. I do think that that business leader category that Beth is in and also describes so well still represents the largest segment of our students. But I'm happy to highlight a few others too. The first that comes to mind is leaders in technology, leaders in the tech field. This group comes to mind first because I think it's our most rapidly growing segment of students. I'm thinking, for example, of a current student who's the chief technology officer at the Dallas branch of the Federal Reserve, or two new students that we admitted this year are senior program managers at Microsoft. And students like these will tell us that in their jobs, they no longer spend their days writing code or otherwise involved with like the minutia of technology. And instead, as leaders in their field, they're now grappling with some of those fundamental questions that you referenced earlier, Seth. Their roles require them to think critically and ethically about their company's missions, about the implications technology has on society writ large. They feel that they've already mastered the how of the technology, but they're coming to pursue the MOA to get new perspective on their work and to gain the critical thinking skills and the ethical frameworks that enable them to start considering those bigger questions, the why questions. Another category I could mention are students that work in communication roles, which is admittedly a bit of a catch-all grouping. But these students are from fields as diverse as marketing, publishing, strategic communications. One of our current students is almost done with the program, is an investigative reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times. Unsurprisingly, these students are already strong writers when they come into the program, but they're seeking to further hone their craft by writing in different disciplines that maybe they're unfamiliar with or uncomfortable writing in, and also to hone their craft by reading some of the masterpieces of literature in a guided discussion group with Chicago faculty, both of which they'll receive in ample measure in the MLA coursework, especially if they pursue the literary studies concentration. And just a third one quickly would be a lifelong learner, which is another sort of catch-all category, but represents a sizable group of students in our program who may not be here for any specific career goals, but for personal enrichment and growth. These are students who are interested in the world around them and come to us to pursue big questions, interesting questions with eminent faculty and in a community of like-minded peers.
Well, so if that's
That's
why,
that's
yeah,
one thing
go
I've
for it.
heard across the board, that people just have that love of learning. That is so true. I mean, everybody that comes into the program, they just are so curious and love to learn. That is a core point.
And so if that's why people come, I want to talk a little bit about the growth that takes place over the MLA. And maybe Beth, we can start with you. You've been in C-suite executive roles in a number of industries. You're now with a consulting firm and you're an advisor to executives. Could you talk a little bit about how the MLA has shaped how you think about leadership and how the liberal arts has really shaped your whole style in this new chapter of your life?
It has. It's been, it's been life changing, and I used that term on a past call, and I thought, oh, is that really true? And it really is. It's expanded, and as you mentioned, I work with all types of leaders, and I'm in the leadership and ethics concentration. But across that, just being in class with people that are such strong thinkers, and it's a different type of thinking. If you're in business or an MBA, you're focused on specific skills that you're an expert on. But this is, it's also pushes you outside your comfort zone of having to really think deeply. And I'm in an art of leadership wisdom class right now, reading the Republic, reading Plato, and that's not something. Even though I have an undergrad degree in journalism, I never read that, and it just it teaches you a different way, as I mentioned, of thinking, and brings it back to business and advising and being able to really, and also just the group of people that you're with in class. Like I have class tonight from 6:30 to 9:30, and it goes so fast. And everybody, we start with these discussion groups, and you read these things, you sit there and you're deep thinking of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to write here that's going to be as thoughtful as what everybody's put in there? And you do, and by the end, and like I took a class in climate and pollution, and I thought, oh, this is so, you're reading scholarly articles and having to distill it down to the key points. And by the end, I got to be good at it, and that's a feeling of accomplishment, saying, wow, I've learned a new skill. On top of the fact of I'm now thinking in a broader way that I bring that back to not just my work life, but my everyday life as well.
And Tim, anything to add on how you see individuals grow in this program?
I would just pick up on a point Beth made about being placed outside your comfort zone and talk about the confidence that students gain through the course of their MLA studies. While many of our students already have achieved noteworthy professional accomplishment, most of them have been away from formal school for a long time, and it can be intimidating to have your re-entry into formal higher education be at a place like UChicago. And so it's always rewarding from my perspective to see students who might be nervous about enrolling in a certain class only to go on to thrive in that class. And a real example comes to mind. I got an email this morning from a student who at the start of this winter term was very nervous about a class on climate science, pollution that she had enrolled in, but then she saw the syllabus and saw that it was just full of academic journal articles from scientific journals. And I had a phone call with her at the start of the term, and she was thinking about withdrawing. I reassured. I mean, she allowed to withdraw if she wants, but I reassured her that the aim of the class is to help you gain the familiarity. So the very thing that you're worried about is like a goal of the class. And so 5 or 6 weeks later, now I got an email this morning saying how much she's enjoying the class and how she's really thriving in it.
Well, we're going to come back.
I took that same class, and by the end of that class, it's like, and it was at the beginning, you're just, oh, this is so overwhelming. But at the end, it's like I was a group of friends sitting around and talking about the environment and pollution. I remember that's how we termed it, and it was true. It was a great conversation.
Well, so Tim and Beth, we're going to come back to you in a moment. I want to now just introduce everyone to the learning journey in greater depth, and then we'll hear how you found it, Beth, and how you oversee it, Tim. So just so we're being really clear about the what, this is, in a nutshell, the curriculum that you go through in the Master of Liberal Arts. You take a course in each of the 4 divisions of the University of Chicago: humanities, social sciences, biological, and physical. And to the point just made, we ask our scientists to teach their material in a way that can be engaged by a generally intelligent but non-expert audience. So what that means is that we want them to bring the ideas without the scientific jargon or quantitative backgrounds that you might need in an upper level physical or biological sciences course. What that actually results in is us getting what we believe are the best faculty, because they're people that are building new knowledge and they're actually working to translate that knowledge for an educated public. And so many of the people who teach will actually bring you in your class a trade book, meaning a book that's being written for a general public that you would pick up at Barnes and Noble. And they are actually using the class as an opportunity to teach, but also to gain your feedback, because what you provide as lifelong learners that is not provided by the scientists who are going through a PhD is that you provide a way of giving them feedback on whether their ideas are truly able to reach that audience that they are seeking. And because many of the ideas here are trying to shape policy and trying to shape business and this is a really important interaction. And so that's what the courses look like. And one of the things we tell adult learners, because sometimes people feel like, well, I have all this experience, we welcome that in the classroom. And in fact, the reason that faculty come to teach in the MLA is because they want to figure out, how do I take these game-changing innovations that are taking place in my lab or in the work that I'm doing in the field, and how do I bring that to this group of people that are hungry for more knowledge? So those are the core classes that you take. And then you take 4 electives, one of which has to be non-Western to just ensure that you're getting a well-rounded curriculum. In a moment, I'll talk about the concentrations. The way that you build the concentration is that you take 3 of those 4 electives and you use them in one domain area, and that allows you to concentrate in that area. All of this capstones in a thesis or a special project, and I'll show a little bit more on that in a moment. So to the point about having an opportunity to specialize, we have 3 concentrations where you can focus your electives. One is on ethics and leadership, and it's really about how do we use the liberal arts to shine a light into leadership. And this is very different, for example, if you're at a booth, which is obviously an outstanding place to be as well. What you're going to look at is how would you manage a company? How would you use kind of empirical information about how leadership takes place to have, your 5 points about what a good leader of a company does. This is going to be a much more open-ended exploration of ethics and leadership. For example, you might take world wisdom literature, and if you took that class, then you would look across how Marcus Aurelius leads. How does leadership take place in an Eastern context, perhaps in a context of Buddhism or in Taoism or in other kind of faith traditions? You would look across all of these different examples. It would also likely touch on examples of business leadership, but it would be very multidisciplinary, very open-ended, and we wouldn't give you an answer. It wouldn't say, this is what leadership. You would actually read, compare notes with your peers, and come away with your own definition that might look very meaningful based on your reading of text and based on your own life experience. Literary studies is just what it sounds like. This is the place where great works of literature are taken very seriously. As you know, we have the Chicago Manual of Style. We have one of the best writing programs in the world. We have obviously one of the most humanistic universities. And so this is a place where you can go deep into literature. Literary studies allows you to do just that as someone who's seeking this out from a lifelong learning standpoint. And then tech and society is the new concentration that we've added. We have our own faculty who are at the very deep end of looking at these topics. I mean, there's an interesting class that just took place on digital ethics. It's taught by a philosopher. He starts with the perspective of theories from philosophy that were developed hundreds of years ago, and then he begins to apply those to how would you apply that to privacy. And he even is in conversation with current technologists. We had Kate Adams, who's the general counsel and executive vice president at Apple, who reports into Tim Cook, in conversation with him because they have a really interesting approach to privacy. She actually has a comparative literature background. He's a philosopher, and they were thinking together about how do we approach these issues ethically and practically in today's era. So those are the concentrations that you can take. These are some of the theses that have been written. And what you'll see as you read through the titles is that they are all over the map. And that reflects that our students come from wide backgrounds. And what we're aiming to do is allow you to pursue a topic that will really focus your intellectual and potentially your professional interests. So, this first one, I believe, and Tim can correct me, was actually written by someone who is from Chile, who was taking this and really wanted to compare, after taking some of our history classes, well, how does that American history compare to the history of my own country? And the next one on here was someone who was integrating this with their work. They were looking at this question of economic mobility during the pandemic, and they were integrating what they were doing in their MLA with what they were trying to accomplish in their jobs. And then a final example here was someone trying to really apply what they were learning in literature to some of the leadership work that they were doing. And so how can you use poetry as leadership training? These are advised one-on-one by a faculty advisor, and they give you an excellent opportunity to take all of this knowledge, which is multidisciplinary and inevitably is not linear. That is something that we say, is that the MLA is not a linear degree. You're gaining a lot of information, but this is the opportunity to bring it together and to apply it toward the life or professional goal that you might have in that next chapter beyond the MLA. With that, I'll just share that we really aim to make this a fun experience and an experience where you are truly in the dialogue and the co-construction of knowledge. And so how do we do that? We make sure that our faculty are not only eminent scholars, but they are selected because they are great facilitators. And we use that term intentionally, that we believe the greatest role they have using the Socratic method is to actually draw out wisdom, not just to be the wisdom on the stage, so to speak. We do make sure that classes are synchronous, that you're in a small room like this one on Zoom or in person. We'll talk about that in a moment, that you can exchange ideas. And one thing that you may know is core to the University of Chicago, we believe in diversity of viewpoints, and we want you to be in a room where people have different ways of thinking, because we believe that that will allow you to better have your own ideas and to be able to learn from other people. And so this is a place where we really both value freedom of expression and diverse lived experiences, because we think that combination allows you to have the greatest transfer of knowledge. We have the greatest faculty in the world. They are tenured faculty who have discovered new ideas in the world. Importantly, though, they are chosen because they can communicate those ideas in the most effective ways and be really gifted facilitators in the classroom. We have a residential seminar, and so what this is an opportunity, because you're online for the core, to come in person every spring and autumn if you choose to. And so it's an option that allows you to have that in-person experience here in Hyde Park. And the way it works very simply is that we take a course that's 30 hours and we put the overwhelming share of those hours into a single week in person. You might have a little bit of Zoom beforehand and a little Zoom after, but you're going to take most of that course within the week. And that allows you to be in person no matter where you are and to have an effective and efficient experience. It also allows a different way for people that might feel I can't work in a nightly, commitment each week, for you to take it with a week off, for example, as an alternative approach to pursuing the degree. You can see that in spring, we will have here on our campus the Foundation of Bioethics with one of the absolute leaders in the entire field of bioethics, Lori Zoloff. It's also an opportunity for you, should you want to be able to glimpse into the MLA, and we can talk more about that in the Q&A. I'll just say that we know that this is an academically rigorous environment. We make sure as we go through the acceptance process that you are ready for it, because we want to be mindful of your resources and we want you to be successful. But one thing we tell people is that once you are admitted, we are relentless in supporting you in being successful. And we know you've been out of class potentially for decades. So what we do is we put a lot of resources around you. There's academic advising. I think the greatest resource, we have an incredible writing support named Millie Ray. She advises you, and many people seek her out, not just for their capstone thesis, but on every single course for their core paper. And so that is something that will be core to your experience here. You will be writing if you're in the MLA. That is the most common type of exam at the end, is a paper. And so you should be ready to write, but you should not feel like you need to have recently written, a 15-page paper for an academic institution. As long as you have that curiosity, Millie will work with you to make sure you're successful in your writing. We have library access to one of the greatest libraries in the world. We have a very vibrant alumni network, and then we have both virtual and in-person events on a regular basis. But here again, let me not be the one telling you. I'm going to actually drop my screen here so that we can actually spotlight Beth and Tim. And so hello again, Beth and Tim. Beth, you're now a little more than halfway through the program. Can you just talk about the learning journey so far, what the educational experience is like, and who is in the classroom with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've taken all of my electives or all of my core classes, and now finishing up with my electives. And a couple of points that I want to just give some examples to, the way that the professors facilitate. First of all, who is in the classroom? You have people from. I had a gentleman in one of my classes that was coming, from China. They're in different, countries, but they're also across, finance, humanities, a lot of different, as you mentioned, reporters. And so there's a lot of different types of people that come with different ideas. But there's always respectful conversations. It's respectful, thoughtful, pulling out ideas that you might go into with one idea and realize, wow, you've changed your thinking just based on the conversations. And the professors do just a gifted job of pulling people together, and also pulling out ideas that you don't even know you have, and very inclusive, so people don't feel put on the spot. I took, you mentioned the residential seminar, and I did the digital ethics residential seminar. And the professor that taught that, he was a master. And also the bringing it back to the real world. There's a really good focus on that, of how, you know, the real time things that are happening in the world as during the class, and also being able to get to know people. You often have people across classes. You'll see them from class to class. I've had the opportunity to take a couple on campus and meet people in person, especially in the residential conference. You get really close to people, but even other ones, you see each other and really understand how they think and respond. And that's really been a gift, and people that I'll know from forever now, moving forward. And then also the support, you mentioned about the support, and I've been using the writing support Millie for my thesis, and just had the best conversation about to, think about it a different way. And it's something that I'm really interested in and can use going forward. And of course, Tim and team and Dean Green, they really, like you said, when you're in, there's just such a strong support to help you just to navigate through your busy life, and also just about the coursework and ability to read. A lot of reading sometimes, but it's not too much. It really is a nice mix of writing and reading and speaking and getting to know people.
And Tim, can we just come to you bigger picture? Beth described her experience. How would you describe the distinctiveness of the MLA classroom?
I would just underscore the magic of the Socratic seminar, which is the primary mode of instruction in the MLA classroom. Classes meet live for lively conversations. Peers, the students learn just as much from each other as they do from the faculty member. The spirit of joint inquiry is the phrase that we use sort of to capture what goes on there. I think it captures the essence of that perfectly. There's disagreement and there's debate, sometimes heated debate in MLA classrooms, but it's all done collegially and productively, and with an eye toward sort of getting everyone a little closer to truth. As a result, faculty are just as eager to be in those classrooms as the students are. The conversations that take place in the classroom are enriching and thought-provoking, and just the best.
Well, so Beth, I want to come back to you for a second, because a question that we sometimes get in these settings, and so I'll just act proactively, is isn't it intimidating to be at the University of Chicago, especially coming back to the classroom, decades after having been there for your undergraduate or graduate years? Can you just talk a little bit about that experience? And maybe, I mean, our aim is to provide a lot of support to you. I'm curious how that's working, and if you feel supported in this setting.
100%. And just I didn't mention this point, but one of the reasons I came in is that I love the University of Chicago. I mean, and I back in many years ago would come to the university is so good about bringing in the community for speak, presentations, speaking, what they're learning. So I had that. I thought, wow, I want to be connected to this university. But yeah, it is. You think, oh, am I? Especially when you have your first class and you're sitting down and you're thinking, wow, there's so many smart people here, and it's different thinking, and it makes you, like, a muscle that you haven't used for a really long time. But yes, the support. Tim gave the example of the student that called him up, and they're just, they're really, and the professors. I mean, if you have any questions, the professors are there, and you also your classmates as well. So no, I felt 100% supported, and it was, very, very quickly that I realized I can do this. And just because I'd been out of school for so very long, and it, like I mentioned, it's a different type of thinking. Yeah, 100% supported, and also just back to the university. I am kind of a learning nerd, where I'll go onto the university website and to see what speakers are out there, and I think the other side of it is the other programs that augment the MLA program, or future. I mean, I'm going to be here forever doing programs, so you're stuck with me.
Well, we're very happy to be. I'm going to come to questions in a moment, but Tim, anything to add on the resources side, and then we'll turn to Carrie before questions.
I don't know if I'll add, but I'll certainly underscore a couple points. Program staff deeply committed to student success. We offer tailored academic advising. We keep track of the various student administrative requirements and deadlines and make sure that they're met. The faculty are also very committed to the success of their students. Faculty here are, of course, very busy, but I've always been amazed at how generous they are with their time and how excited they are to be teaching our students. And I'll jump on the Millie bandwagon and mention the incredible writing support. Her title is writing advisor, but that doesn't even really begin to scratch the surface of the help she offers. And it seems like I get 1 or 2 emails a month from students either praising the support that they've received from Millie in a recent meeting with her, or otherwise lamenting the fact that they didn't seek out Millie's support earlier in their MLA journey.
Well, we're going to come back again at Q&A, but I'm going to reshare my screen and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Carrie Dempsey, who directs recruiting, and that includes our admissions timeline. And so, Carrie, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, Seth. So a couple important dates I wanted to start off with. One is our spring application deadlines coming up quickly on March 4th. I know that sounds like there's probably a lot of time left, but you'll see when we get to the next slide that there's a lot of steps in the process. So don't plan on waiting till March 4th to hit that submit button on your application in the system. And then our first day of classes for the spring quarter will be March 18th. So looking a little bit deeper in terms of the application process, as I mentioned, there's quite a few elements to it. One is a writing sample. This is a bit of a longer piece. We usually look for around 5 pages here. We are very open-minded on this writing sample. We don't want you to feel like you have to do something or create something from scratch. A lot of times our applicants have maybe a prior writing sample from a different degree program they took part in, or you may have a writing sample from something that you have done in the professional environment that you can use for this. So if you're uncertain, if you have something and you're not certain if it's going to work for our needs, you can definitely email it over to us and we will take a look at it and provide you some feedback and let you know if it can be used or not. If you do need to create something from scratch, we do have people who might write a review of a movie or a play that they've seen. So there's definitely a few different ways to go about that piece. For the candidate statement, this is really something that we ask applicants to really give a good amount of time to. Any time that you might save on the writing sample, spend that time very much focused on telling us why this program, what this will mean to you, what this will mean to you. And this is a really, really important part of the application as we go in and review materials. You do need 2 letters of recommendation. A lot of times this is a step in the process that can take applicants a bit of time since you're counting on other people to complete this step for you. So if you haven't already started having conversations with people who will write these recommendations for you, please start reaching out to them now. Transcripts for the application, you can submit unofficial transcripts, but we will need official before you start in the course. A copy of your resume. If you do need to take the TOEFL exam, please do that at least 2 weeks prior to the application deadline, as it can take some time for that to get submitted into our system. And we do have a $75 application fee. And then there is an interview that we will coordinate for you once you submit your application. If you are admitted into the program, our current tuition rate is just over $4,000 for each course, which brings total tuition up to just over $36,000 for the program. We do offer scholarships. So if you are interested in a scholarship for the program, you can note that in your application when you're submitting it. Strongly encourage you, if you are interested in a scholarship, again, applying as early as possible, because we do give consideration for scholarships as the applications come in. We also always strongly encourage all applicants to check with your employer's tuition reimbursement benefits, as many employers will provide support in that area. And there's definitely skills, as you've heard throughout this whole session, that would definitely provide positive impact on your employer and your performance there. So please look into that as well.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And that is moving us into questions. And there are 3 different ways we can invite you to ask questions. Put them into the chat. You can raise your hand in the reactions tab. So if you press on that, you'll see at the bottom is a raise hand function, and then we can invite you. But this is, as intended, a small group, which is how we keep our classrooms. And so we also welcome you to just literally physically raise or shout out. I will say that I got a private chat here with 1 question. It seems most current students are already successful and established professionally, financially, etc. What about students seeking to reinvent themselves or restart their careers? What kind of jobs have graduates pursued? And maybe that I can come to you first, because if I'm remembering correctly, you were just a little bit into your building your consulting practice as you joined us in the MLA. Am I remembering that correctly? And how did this shape your experience? And then Tim, maybe we can come to you for global thoughts on how you've seen people use this as a reboot in their career journeys. Beth, you first.
Yeah, actually, I have a timely example of this, because like you mentioned, I'm reworking and I'm also done another program, Crafting Your Next Chapter, which is another information session. But and my thesis is a good example of that, where I am working on something that I'm very passionate and interested in, and maybe looking at that as a future path. So so on a specific example, but then in a broader way, it's helped me, like, as I've said like 3 or 4 times, think differently and to broaden my horizons of things I might be interested in. And it's being back in a university setting, and just opening my mind. I think that's a good way to put it, of how it's helped me kind of come to a new kind of reinvention of, you know, who I am, or at least taking what I've done and pulling it together in a different way is probably maybe a better way to put it.
Thanks, Beth. Tim, anything to add on a global student basis?
Yeah, on the reinvention front, 2 thoughts. The first is one that I neglected to include in the student resources. MLA students are considered to be full regular graduate students at the University of Chicago, and one of the resources available to them in that capacity is at the sort of the central home for all graduate students, is an office called UChicago Grad, and they have career counseling. It's the career office, and including hosting job fairs where employers come to campus and that sort of thing. That's available to students. So someone looking for a reinvention would be well advised to utilize that resource. But more broadly, because the curriculum is so diverse and interdisciplinary, if you have a sense of the direction you want to reinvent yourself toward, then letting our advisors know, academic advisors know, that we can help sort of tailor your electives to coursework that would be beneficial to that end, including doing an independent study, which would sort of be like a mini thesis, sort of designing your own syllabus that would be most beneficial for your career journey.
So there's another question in the chat: how competitive is admissions? And I'll just share that our aim with admissions is to be sincerely vetting for your readiness to thrive in the program. And so what we're really aiming toward is making sure that the people that join this MLA are going to be successful. They're going to be able to engage fully in the academic content and community, and they're going to be able to get the value out so that they are moved forward by the degree. And there is a high standard there. That said, it does not look like the world, for example, that you might read about in US News, of what it takes to get into the college here at the university, where there really is an abundance. I mean, you know, we have 40,000 people that apply every year, and we just have capacity constraints that are immense because, you know, there's so many dorm rooms and so many pieces, and so it's a 5% acceptance rate there. So if that's helpful, this is selective, this is sincere on our end, and that we want to make sure that this is a good investment for you of time and resources. And so it is selective, but it is not like the competitiveness that you might associate with the university if you're familiar with our, undergraduate experience here. So I hope that's helpful. I see Serena's question here. How do students typically structure independent studies, and how does this differ from the thesis project? Tim, can you maybe take that one?
Sure. So the thesis is a longer it's a longer project. A typical MLA thesis will be 35 to 50 pages, and it's usually a two-quarter investment. And an independent study, the end goal will be maybe a 15-page term paper. So one way to think of it is an independent study is again sort of designing your own class with the goal of covering material that you could cover in a 10-week period, producing that 15-page term paper as opposed to the longer thesis project. And so I will add, some students will do an independent study if they're really interested in a topic that's somehow not being covered by the other MLA course offerings, or they'll use an independent study as a springboard into the thesis, especially if they have their heart set on a thesis topic that they don't really have background in, or a wide enough background in. So they'll use the independent study as a preparation for the longer thesis project.
Serena has another question. How do the scientific courses maintain graduate level rigor without being technical? And maybe I'll just offer a little bit and then turn it over, Tim and Beth, to both of you. I have been so impressed just glimpsing in at the level of rigor and experience that our scientists bring. And one example I think of is Peggy Mason. She's a neuroscientist. She is actually someone who's been working on a trade book. And so she's literally working through with the students a lot of these big concepts, giving them academic journal level, sometimes helping them to demystify these articles that they're reading. But I mean, she's even thinking with us about the possibility of a residential seminar, because this would have to be in person, where students could actually come into her lab, and may be off-putting to some of you, but she is one of the recipients of the donation of human organs. And so in her lab, they actually dissect real human brains. And so, that's been a conversation is, can that be a residential seminar so that people could literally be in the lab? So the scientists here are very serious about bringing you into the real science, even though they will sometimes have to do the calculations for you or help you demystify the latest articles in academic journals. But yeah, Tim and Beth, let me turn it over. And, Beth, you mentioned that climate course, so you've had at least one of these and maybe more.
Yeah. And I also took the neurobiology of everyday life, the class you mentioned. And both of them you're reading, and even the digital ethics class, but the science ones, you're reading scientific journals and articles and talking about them. I mentioned the pollution one, where one of the things that you do is you have eight articles in a class, and you have the responsibility to read one of them and present it to the class. And at first that was daunting, but at the end, and also in the neurobiology, you're reading and looking at terms that you didn't know about. But the professors do such a great job of making it at a level still robust and high level and scientific to that point, but to one that you can understand. And that's the beauty of it. And it brings topics that you don't have, you hear about or you read about in the news, but now you have the ability to really understand it in a much more robust and full way, which that's been a really, and I've asked people to ask that question before about, is it maybe it's, but very quickly they put you at ease, and you're at the end, you're like, wow, this is a new skill that I now have, and way to think.
Tim, anything to add?
Excuse, can I ask something?
Yes, go for it, Joshua.
Yeah, I was wondering how many semesters a year is it? Because it said if you take 2 classes per semester, you can get financial aid.
Yes, so there are 2 levels that we should mention. So as Carrie referenced, you can get scholarships. So those would be dollars that just take off from the cost. So, instead of paying 36, if you had a $5,000 or $10,000 scholarship, you'd pay 31 or 26 in total, if that resonates. There's a second level of financial assistance, which is loans. For example, there's FAFSA or other ways to get graduate loans from the government. And for those, and I'm looking to Carrie as our director of recruitment, if you are in 2 or more classes in a single quarter, you have access to those graduate loans. There may be other loans like private that are available even if you're only taking 1 course per quarter, but for the government-backed loans, you need to be at 2 or more. So I hope that's helpful. Just to round out the thoughts, Beth and Tim, about the rigor. There's a question here from Elizabeth. Do any of the students enroll with the goal of moving on to an academic PhD program? And yeah, if you could each maybe speak to, maybe Tim first, do you see some of our students doing that? I know I've heard a couple examples, but I don't know the frequency.
Yeah, I think that's right. In the time I've been here, there's been a couple that have successfully done that, and I think they're finished with their PhD now. It's not the majority of the students, but there's nothing. I would say there's nothing inherent about the structure of the MLA that prevents that from happening. It's just a question of the motivation of the students. That's just not what a lot of the students are pursuing the MLA for. But for those that do, this goes back to sort of an earlier point. Letting the faculty members know that that's a goal of yours will help, because I mean they have connections, and they could even review your candidate statements for your PhD application and that sort of thing. But also letting program staff know that as well, so we can help sort of tailor your academic journey toward achieving that goal.
And Elizabeth, I'll just mention to your other question here about the basic program. As Dean of the Graham School, I agree. We have incredible instructors in that program. And yes, there is a mechanism now where there are 2 roles sometimes that those instructors play in the MLA. There are times for the residential seminars where the faculty member will want someone in addition to help facilitate discussion. So Eva Fernandez, as an example, has come over and played that role, though the grading and leadership of the course remains with a tenured faculty member. The second is that we have begun now to allow some instructors to come from outside of the tenured faculty. They're reviewed by our tenured faculty as part of the process, but it allows us, for example, to bring in people that are chief technology officers at major media companies that are thinking about these big questions of ethics. It also occasionally will allow us to draw from the incredible instructor set at the Graham School. And so one example of that is Fred Beitler, who had been the historian at the U.S. House of Representatives. And we have the joy of having teach in our open enrollment programs. He developed a course for Tech and Society that was focused on kind of how to look at these trends. It was called Techna and Sophia. Over the period from the Greeks to today. And so that is one of the blessings of the MLA, is it's situated in a home of lifelong learning. And so we can draw on all of those assets. I know we are coming to time, so I want to be respectful of everyone. I don't see other questions in the chat that are unanswered. Any other questions before we let everyone go? We do want to let you know that our classes end on time at the Graham School, so we want to be respectful here in this information session. All right, well, let me just thank you all for being here. Let me just mention on behalf of the school that we consider this to be a jewel, not just of Graham, but of the university. You get to go across all of the domains. And this is, as a university committed to humanistic inquiry, what we believe is a core to lifelong learning, that we continue to ask these big questions across time and space. Beth, thank you for joining us and being a role model student. Tim, thank you for leading this program. And I'll just name that for those of you who have questions that are outstanding, you've probably gotten an email from Tom Shannon, our outstanding enrollment counselor, and he would be glad to continue conversations with any of you about any individualized questions you may have. Thank you for joining us for this month's session, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. Have good afternoons.